lot of you have seen Tovia Singer, Outreach Judaism. Some of you haven't. And the guy that's with him a lot of times, Tanakh Talk. Let's go. Welcome.
People scream at the Jews, but we call ourselves the chosen people. But it's these kind of people, and it's this kind of ideas, especially in Reformed theology, especially in Calvinist theology, that believes that there's a certain elect that were chosen to be saved, because this is all nonsensical.
I guess already we got to go there. I don't complain about the idea of God choosing the Jewish people. And I don't complain if they still talk about that. I don't complain. Some of you know I'm a pretty big defender of the Jewish people and of Israel as much as I can be. So that's, I don't know what he's saying. It doesn't bother me. But likewise, Tovia should then understand and be aware of that God's election, God's grace, his unconditional grace, his mercy that he extends, is part of his prerogative. It is part of who he is. No one can sway his hand. No one can stop him. So I don't understand why when he brought up Calvinism and Reformed theology, which really has nothing to do with the video in any substantial or meaningful way that I can really see, except for maybe certain understandings of imputation, perhaps. He says, this is all nonsensical. Whoa, are you saying it's nonsensical for people to say that God still elects? Because that's all the Christians are saying, those who are Reformed. And you may say, well, yeah, they're not elect, they're Gentile or something like that. But the concept is we're elect through Christ. We're elect in Christ. Instead of having to join to a particular people group to sort of then join into the assembly of Yahweh, there's all these steps in Old Testament Judaism. There's one mediator, Messiah. And so if you're in Messiah, you're joined through him. And he is the one who selects and elects. That's Ephesians 1. I'm just saying, starting off, we're not going to talk a lot about that, but how is the concept of election nonsensical, Mr. Singer? You hold to that idea that Israel is chosen. We're saying that God chooses still. That's all.
No, I think this is a very important segment. I'm not familiar with the Christian here, but it's an important segment that's highly Pauline. And it's about Abraham and about faith and about how these passages are marshaled by Christian missionaries in order to present a Christian message.
Well, hey, I am a Christian, so I'm going to present a Christian message. But the context of this is, not me showing up at a synagogue or something like that. What's the concept or what's the context of this? It's when I do a smoke room, when I take live questions. And so somebody is calling in, the gentleman on the bottom. And so right now, Mr. Singer is going to be watching part of the program. You'll see myself on the top, and then you'll see the questioner who called in. I believe his name is Jacob, who called in. We had a great discussion. He clipped part of it and responded to it because he felt some kind of way. So let's look at this. It's not Pauline to say God will never lower his standard. It's okay, I got to stop already. When I'm saying it's not Pauline to say God will never lower his standard, that's where they begin the clip. I'm not saying that Paul doesn't say something like that. Of course he does. He talks about we all fall short of the glory of God. But that concept, those ideas, all I'm saying is they're not merely Pauline. Of course we hold to the writings of Paul. That's not what I was denying when I say it's not Pauline, because he brings that up later. I'm saying it's not merely Pauline. So a tactic with the counter-missionary guys is we'll try to take something that is a thoroughly biblical concept, and we can just talk about Hebrew Scriptures here for a second, and they'll relegate it to some category of Christian theology as if therefore it has less merit and then essentially is some kind of newfangled Gentile invention. What I'm saying is it's not merely Pauline to talk about God's holiness, in which no wicked thing, no sin can be in his presence. You get a vision of Isaiah. In Isaiah 6, he has a vision. What's he do? Woe is me, man of unclean lips, dwell among unclean people. Any kind of just semblance of seeing part of the holiness of the one true God, that divine power and purity, we are left utterly undone because of the gap between the creature and the creator. And all we're doing is emphasizing that when we say God's not going to lower his standards. You must be ye perfect. But you can't, so what do you do? Absolute righteousness, pure perfection, holy from all eternity. He doesn't lower it so man can get in. And that's why Abraham believed and was counted to him righteous. Before he ever did any of the law that was given, he believed it was counted to him righteousness. So how would you deal with a verse like that, that it was Abraham's belief that was imputed to him as righteous?
Which one? I would need to look it up. Look at it specifically. Do you have the specific verse?
Yeah. It's when he there's one of the reiterations of Genesis chapter 15. Now, obviously, Paul deals with this in the book of Galatians, so I'm not running around without Pauline insight into the passage. However, the question is what Paul's saying about Genesis 15, is it correct? That's the question. And the answer is yes. And I think we show that by these questions in this discussion. And it's very important to see how it unfolds. And what does Genesis 15:6 say? It says that Abraham believed and it was credited to him as righteousness. That's very, very, very important. Yeah? Now, I want to give a shout out to Holy Heat. That's my man, Mr. Torres. Oh, yeah, for the super chat. Keeping the show afloat. My brother, you get a thumbs up and a heart for your effort. All right, let's continue to watch this. The Abrahamic covenant. And it's in Genesis 15:6. Then I'm reading from the LSB. Then he believed in Yahweh and he counted it to him as righteousness. So if you go to Genesis 15:6, and I understand you're just going to say, what is it, Bereshit? If you go to Genesis 15:6, though, you'll see that it was counted to Abraham as righteousness, his trust in God. And notice, that is the way we are granted righteousness, is by our trust in his promises, not by keeping the law, which you've already admitted you actually can't do, because you said you want to keep the law, but then you recognize you'll mess up. So then you repent. But I pointed out that it takes blood sacrifice to atone for sin, not merely a verbal, I messed up, I'll try it better next time.
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but on the blood, before I get to the blood sacrifice part.
This is where we come to passages like Leviticus 17:11. We actually run into the same issue with our Tanakh-only Hebrew Israelite friends who act as if it seems like they sort of minimize the importance of the blood in the Old Testament. And obviously Christians emphasize that because we have a permanent blood sacrifice. So Leviticus 17:11 becomes important in these discussions, and you'll get counter-missionaries saying, oh, no, that's not really what it means. One question, and I got this question from Dr. Michael Brown, he says, what does Rashi say? So to anyone watching who's affiliated with the Tanakh-only side or Outreach Judaism, or maybe Jacob, the gentleman who called, or Tanakh Talk, or Outreach Judaism, I think I already said that, any of that, who's sympathetic to that or with that, Leviticus 17:11, if you hold Rashi as important in this discussion, look up what Rashi says about it. What does Rashi say? That should be an important point in this discussion. Yes? Continuing on.
I'm right here in Genesis 15:6. I'm not in Judaism. Doesn't say that belief is still a part. Belief is still a part. I just want to mention on. Let me go here. Hold on, just a second. Sorry. In Genesis 26, verse 5, it says, "Because Abraham hearkened to my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my instructions." So there was commandments and some sort of instruction that God must have given Abraham for that to have been said there. Do you see what I'm saying?
But why was righteousness imputed to him?
Because he was righteous.
Wait. If he was already righteous, why? Okay, we'll stop there. What does it mean to be imputed? Okay, this gets into a lot of stuff. We don't have time to go way too deep into it. But imputed, just think credited. Imputed, credited. When we talk about imputed righteousness, we're saying credited righteousness. It's not righteousness that you earned or merited, but it's something that God gifts to you. So Paul points out that concept is not foreign to Judaism. The fact that Abraham believes, and that is what's credited to him as righteous. Now, Mr. Singer's going to make a mistake, and at some point in here, he's going to essentially think we are reading this idea of the way we believe in Jesus, just that he exists. And he says, no, it's about that he'll do what he said. But that's a false dichotomy. The trust in God, which is all faith really means. It means that you trust what God says, that he will do what he says. Faith is not just believing that he exists or something like that, and that's not even what we believe about Jesus. The idea is that he will fulfill his promise, just like Abraham did, and that's why he left. However, we're going to see as we go along, Abraham faltered in that sometimes. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's just some Christian stuff, you're just making it up, let's, it's not going to show. It's not going to show. I'm going to show you something here. As we get on, I'm going to show a commentary from Genesis 15. Well, it's more like I'm going to show some targums on Genesis 15 to show this concept. Minority report, to be sure, but it is attested to. Would righteousness have to be credited to his count because it was faith?
Because you can be righteous and then fall, and your righteousness restored back to you. It's not one sin does it end. There's a verse in Job chapter 33, verse 26 that also says God gives righteousness back to those people.
So, back to those people. I don't know if you heard the way he just explained it. That is an idea that actually would resonate with, say, a Roman Catholic in a way. The way he explained it is almost sort of a Roman Catholic understanding. Now, I understand that Judaism is prior, but Judaism itself has developed, of course. But if you heard that, you could be righteous, you fall, and then God gives it back to you. The idea with the righteousness that we have been given is that it's alien, it's exotic, it's foreign to us. It's not something inherent or internal to us. And that's how the discussion moves, because as we go on, he basically says that Abraham possesses that. And I say, no, he didn't. Look, he lied. Now, this is going to get into the crux of this and why the title says a liar, or the thumbnail says that.
I'm paraphrasing that. That's not the exact wording, but I would need to pull it up.
But it sounds like you hold that Abraham in himself is internally and inherently righteous.
Well, he had to be righteous based on what that said.
Do the righteous lie? Whoa. Look at Tovia doesn't like this. He doesn't like this discussion.
I'm sure. Not everybody. Nobody's perfect.
Is it righteous? Is it righteous to lie?
No, it's not righteous to lie.
Okay, so then you can't lie and be righteous in the fullest sense of the word.
These passages.
Okay, so that's where he stops it. So it was really just a few minutes. No, that's fine. You can play whatever you want. The rest of the video that Tovia uploaded, and he uploaded it to his channel, Tovia Singer, Outreach Judaism. I got the video, the original video. I have it in the description box, so you can see it. Link there. It's actually titled "Exposed: The Missionary Who Corrupted the Torah." Rabbi Singer reveals the truth. Here, I'll show it to you real quick, just so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the video that we're responding to. Rabbi Tovia Singer made a video where he responded to me, and let me try to show it to you. I had the screen set up, but it feels like it doesn't want to be set up right now. But hold on, we'll fix that. That's for later in the program when we're getting to get into the text proper. But let me show you, since we're here. There you go. There you go. All right, so see the title there, Exposed: The Missionary Who Corrupted the Torah. Rabbi Singer reveals the truth. Came out 11 days ago, and it's got almost 10,000 views. He has 120,000 subs. Let's see what the top comments are on this. Aren't you guys curious to see? Thank you, Rabbi, for speaking the truth about the real meaning of faith in the Jewish Bible. Oh, the comments went away. May Hashem bless you. Okay, I never defined faith, and I definitely don't think faith is just merely thinking God exists. Faith is trust, in essence. That's a biblical definition. Thank you, Rabbi. Flawless as always. Your message gives my soul relief. I am surrounded by XDians, that's Christians. Guess they don't want to say Christ, yeah? Who dislike Jews, and your views are a comfort. Well, to Isa, the commenter, I am truly sorry if you really are surrounded by Christians who dislike Jews. I don't know what kind of Christians those could be who dislike Jews. To Isa and any Jewish person watching this, whether you converted in or whatever the case is, Christians should have a deep love, care, respect for you. Yes, as an image bearer, but also because of your, for lack of a better word, the unique pedigree of the people in relationship to our faith. This is what Romans 9 and 11 is all about. So I'm sorry to hear that. Now, we're still going to disagree, okay? We're still going to have our discussion, but it shouldn't. No one should be disliking you for this. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you, Rabbi Singer, for setting the record straight. May Hashem bless you and your family for speaking the truth and exposing the lies of Christianity. Exposing the lies of Christianity. These are, not as harsh as Hebrew Israelite comments, but, they're definitely not fans of us. Wow, Rabbi really is in season on this one. Very sweet, chef's kiss. Thank you, Rabbi. Okay. None of these are, let me see here. There's a lot of comments here. Ironic. The missionary was lying, but he has the audacity to slander Abraham as a liar. Insanity. Now, help me understand, to the commenter. I wonder, where did I lie? Abraham did lie. Abraham did lie. I'm not just saying Abraham's character is just a liar. That was sort of a, if in the clip you play, notice I just said, did Abraham lie? Just going around calling Abraham a liar. That's like that's who he is. No, he's the father of the faithful. But this is like the way it got reported, sort of. That's not the way that's not who I'm saying Abraham is. But what are you talking about? Have you read the scripture? This is, Abraham did lie, and I'm gonna show that in a second here. But I don't understand. This is not really, it's not a debatable point. Now, maybe you could make an excuse for it. Look at this, official secular Quranism. Idolatry is unrighteous. So the Jews who practice Judaism and Muslims would agree that Christians are idolaters. Last time I checked, it did say in the Christian New Testament, notice all these comments, the Testament, that faith without works is dead. Yes, that is what Jacob, who it says James in the book, but his name should be Jacob. So that simply means that if you claim you have faith in God but don't actually live like it, means nothing. That's actually true. So this Christian doesn't actually know his own Greek Testament. See, they don't like to call it Christian New Testament. Okay, that's fine. For some Christians, think that being righteous means being without sin like God. No, notice I said ultimately. Ultimately, what we're saying is God is the standard of righteous, and his law is perfect, and you must keep it if you're trying to keep it to attain salvation. But it was never about that. It was always about trusting in God and his promises. It was never about keeping the law perfectly, as if you could do that. We're not saying you shouldn't try to live up to a righteous standard, though. It's like, as usual, Brother Edward says, ignorance plus arrogance is a recipe for disaster. Misquoting, twisting, adding, and removing the Hebrew scripture to support Jesus for their so-called immunity and fulfilling through. That was a short clip. Where did I do all that, Bearing false witness is a malicious attempt to harm someone, but lying can save living souls. The definitions are not the same. Okay, maybe we'll look at some of these later. I mean, to me, I'm kind of flabbergasted by these comments. They're definitely not charitable. We'll put it that way. Definitely not charitable, but that's okay. We can live with that. We can live with that. We can deal with it. It's all right. Let's go back to the video and pick it up here.
That the missionaries are marshaling and misappropriating are really so rich, and a little bit hurts to listen to this, but it's really important to understand what's happening here. So this fellow, Kirby, I believe his name is.
It hurts to listen to this. What did I do so egregious? In a small clip, I'm just going over these things. There's such a melodramatic reaction to my simple asking questions and having a discussion about the text. I wasn't disrespectful I knew where the passages were. I knew the incident, this is such a melodramatic overreaction. Like the comments, and even to an extent, Mr. Singer here.
Right.
Right.
He's calling in on a show of evangelical Christians. Well, God said to Abraham in Genesis 15 that you, in fact, have faith vayaminu b'Hashem vayachsheveh lo tzedakah, that because Abraham trusted in God, so therefore God considered that to be righteous. Now, this passage and other passages like it, Paul, what does the word faith mean? So this is very critical.
Now, really, to me, the discussion wasn't even the nature of faith per se. It was really more about the nature of righteousness and maybe even imputation or crediting. But let's take a look here. I want to show you what I mean, because that's quite a charge to say, you're marshaling these passages and you got it wrong very seriously to the point where it hurts. So let me show you Genesis 15:6. This is from Sephra. People who are involved in this will be familiar with the website. Give me a second here. Okay. Right here, this is Targum Jonathan. Okay, so we're on Targum Jonathan. Now, if you know that there was a time where the Jewish people were speaking Aramaic, that's most likely what Jesus did, you'll know that the Targums were sort of these loose translations by scholars, by rabbis, that added some interpretation to the translation. So it's sort of a mixture of translation and commentary, and some verses more so than others. So what does Targum Jonathan say on Genesis 15? So this is where we're at. So we're going to see what was written in Aramaic and then translated in English now, and this is what we're going to be looking at. This comports with what I was promoting the meaning of the text to mean, which I am using the same argumentation that Paul used there, but he's not the only one. What does Targum Jonathan say here? And he believed in the Lord and had faith in the Memra. That's an Aramaic word. It means word. It's very important in other New Testament studies because it's the background for the concept behind the Greek word logos in John's prologue. Not all uses of logos equal conceptual linkage to Memra, which is an Aramaic idea, sort of specific to Jerusalem area or influence style Judaism of Second Temple era. It's important because here the emphasis is that Abraham believed in the word or the Memra of the Lord. Do you see? Abraham's not, quote, sort of doing anything. Look at what it says. He believed in the Lord and had faith in the word of the Lord. And it emphasizes it. The Sephra right here. Faith in the word of the Lord, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness because he parlayed not before him with words. So, Abraham believed God, and that means he acted upon his belief. He went up and got the hints. Now, my point is, here you see that Targum Jonathan recognizes that it was Abraham's belief in the word of the Lord that was credited to him as righteousness. Is there a different way to read that? Now, when you look at all the sages and all the Targums, this is not the majority report. This is the minority report. There's this one and there's maybe one other one that you could kind of say leans that way. However, even if it's a minority report of, say, one, the point is that it pre-exists or simultaneously exists with the era we're talking about. What's that mean? That means it's not merely some Gentile or Pauline invention. There's precedent within Judaism for it. Do you guys see why that's important? This is important. Now, I want to show what it says when you go to the site. I think this is how JPS translates it. I think that's what I got up here. It's important to see. Yeah, that's what that is. Okay, so I showed Targum Jonathan. Oh, yeah, this one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm having trouble. Okay. Now, here we are again. And let me show you what we're looking at now. If you're coming on in, please let us know you're here. And please fill out the poll if you could. We would greatly appreciate that as well. And don't be a stranger. All right. Let me show you what this is from real quick. Let me make sure I get it to you. Make sure Yep. Okay. Let me make sure. It's Sephora, by the way, sephora.org. That was where we were at just now. A very important website in these discussions. Okay, yeah. Here, remember I said 1 or 2. Now we have Targum Onkelos. That's a different Targum, lesser known, I might say. And this is this screenshotted. I'm going to read Targum Onkelos. So again, we're reading an Aramaic translation of the Hebrew with some commentary, and listen to the way it's given here, okay? Me and I go without a child, and this son of business, Bargama, who is in my house is the Damaseka, sorry about my pronunciation, please forgive me, Eleazar. And Avram or Abram said, behold, thou hast not given me a child, and behold, the son of my house is my heir. And lo, the word, Pithgama, of the Lord was with him, saying, this shall not be thy heir, but a son whom thou shalt beget will be thine heir. So Abraham's saying, who's going to fulfill this promise? Is it going to be Eleazar? Because he's not blood. And Yahweh answers him, and he says this in verse 5. Genesis 15, this is the Targum Onkelos. And he led him without and said, behold, now the heavens and number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he said to him, so will be thy sons. And he believed in the word of the Lord, Memra da Yeya. And he reckoned it to him unto justification. That one's really even more specific. Targum Onkelos, and the way you spell that is in English, okay, is Onkelos. And there's a couple different places you can find it. That's actually at Sephora too. I just grabbed a different screenshot, the way it looked, but you can find that online. Okay, what's the point? Circling all back here. It's not just merely Pauline or Christian. The concept exists about faith being credited as righteousness. What's the point of this? It shows that it's trust in God's promises. It's not working. Now, we will work. Absolutely, we will do good works and do good deeds. You must. We shall. That's part of walking out your faith. But it doesn't earn you merit. That's God's grace. And what sort of activates it? Your trust in him. It is that simple. Targum Jonathan, I showed you that. Now, Targum Onkelos on Genesis 15:6. And tell me that we're just making up stuff, that Paul's just making up stuff. Tell me that there's no precedent within Judaism for this, because it's not the case. And now we see it. So let's continue on with the video here with Rabbi Tovia Singer. See what he has to say.
Abraham.
Shout out to Faithful to God, by the way. I see you in the live chat. This happened when we were on together. Oh, did it decide to stop? It looks like it froze up. Just a second here, ladies and gentlemen. It did freeze up. A real shame. Let's see if I can fix this. So, how you guys doing, huh? How we doing, huh? How we doing? Yeah, it froze up. Let's try to fix this. Real shame.
You know, people scream at the Jews that we call.
Okay, we have to go a little bit further in here. Refind our spot because it froze.
Kirby, I believe his name is, right?
Here we go.
He's calling in on a show of evangelical Christians. Well, God said to Abraham in Genesis 15 that you, in fact, have faith vayaminu b'Hashem vayachshevel lo tzedakah, that because Abraham trusted in God, So therefore, God considered that to be righteous. Now, this passage and other passages like it are marshaled by the church, are really marshaled and misappropriated
Were they marshaled and misappropriated in Targum Jonathan and Targum Onkelos, Mr. Singer? Were they?
by Paul. What does the word faith mean? So this is very critical. Abraham trusted in the Lord. That means Genesis 15 is not where we're introduced to Abraham.
Correct.
See, so the Christian is presenting this as though, bang, Abraham is there, and God elected him for righteousness based on nothing that Abraham had done.
Yes and no. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true that God elected Abraham. This is the concept of unconditional election. I understand they'll say, well, that's Christian, that's Reformed. It happens this way all the time. Can I give you the best example? Because he just said, he's acting as if this is when we're introduced to Abraham. No, because my argument, the full argument in regards to the lie that we're going to get to later, and I don't mean Tovia Singer's lie. I never said he lied. That's his comment section to me. I'm talking about Abraham's lie. That's what I say when I mean lie. Understand? It's a lack of trust in Yahweh word to him that he will see the promise through, and it starts in 12 earlier, right? It doesn't start at 15. It's reiterated in 15. At 15:6, you have this discussion we're talking about. But this is still God's election and choice based upon his own free will. God's. Can I give you the best example of this? This is very important. Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau. They are in the womb of their mother. And God is already saying that the older shall serve the younger. The younger is going to get the birthright and the blessing. That's totally backwards from how things were done. It wasn't based upon anything they did. And I think you could make the argument, if you're just going to do it sort of based upon merit or something like that, that in certain ways Esau had more merit. I mean, if you just read the story as it is, you say, huh? Because you look at Jacob, the usurper, the heel grabber. It is before they had done anything. And this is the exact argument this is the exact argument of God's election that Paul makes in Romans 9. This is exactly what he brings out, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's exactly that argument. So, this is important to understand. And it's not the only example. Now, God doesn't only choose the worst people. But the point is, he can choose who he wants. Yeah.
But as it turns out, we are told back even in Genesis 11, where we're introduced to Abraham at the very end of the chapter, that he took a girl from his dead brother and married her, although she couldn't have children. And then Genesis chapter 12, which was last week's portion of Torah, Lech Lecha, God is testing Abraham, and he says, go. Abraham, incidentally, was not Jewish. He's a Mesopotamian. That was a long way to go.
It's interesting. Brings out the fact that Abraham is not Jewish. Properly speaking, that's true. He's got to go. You want to see more about that, I'm going to recommend the Holman Bible Atlas. This is a great resource. Supporters had gotten this for me previous birthday, and it's just a gorgeous resource. And map 20 and 21 show sort of the world of Abraham and some of the journeys he made. I know you can't entirely see it, and it has a lot of photographs as well. Can't really get too deep into that here, but yes, Abraham made the journey. And you could say there's tests. The traditional number is 10. But here's what I'm going to say, in accordance with the sages, that Abraham failed at certain points. And I'm going to show you one when he left Canaan to go to Egypt, because that's not what he was told to do. Now, hold your horses on that.
Go from your land, from the land of your fathers, from the land that you were born. And God doesn't even tell Abraham where he's going.
True.
Just go to a land that I will show you. And Abraham went. So Abraham is obedient to the Lord. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty One, blessed be his name, says that, in fact, you're such a noble person. Here, he did not seek out his own glory and memory. I want to just for a moment blink at Genesis 11, because that's where we're introduced to Abraham.
Okay, true enough. True enough. True enough. And I love having discussions with people who get into the text and get into the scripture, because it helps everybody involved. So appreciate that. That's good. True enough. But let's keep on going and find out if everything here is accurate and right. Shout out to Radar Apologetics in the live chat and Leif of Avine Eternal. We got some great people up in here. Appreciate all y'all. And C, Tippy Bear, how y'all doing?
Most people think it's 12, but it's really 11. Chapter 11 of Genesis is really quite splendid, because there are two independent stories that don't seem connected. The first part of Genesis 11 is the Dor HaFloga, the generation that built a tower trying to, the Bible says, make a name for themselves. That was the key. And God dispersed them and gave them languages, different languages, variegated languages, so they could never do anything like that, right? So what was the major sin of the generation that built a tower that they thought would go to heaven after they had perfected the art of making bricks? That they were looking to make a name for themselves. In contrast, juxtaposing that, we often talk about that, Abraham at the end of chapter 11 has a brother who dies. Abraham then marries her, his daughter, who we're told about her medical, well, given her medical charts, quite private, we're told that she was barren, she was an akara. So Abraham perpetuated not his own memory, unlike the generation.
Okay, now, you may say, wait, where's all this in the story? This frequently happens in these discussions where you think you're discussing Bible, but in reality, you're discussing Bible plus a lot of times. You're discussing Bible plus. And, you know, as far as the, meaning there's Talmudic and other elements coming into the background information. So you get all this sort of additional things that may or may not be factual. Now, the Tower of Babel, you know, may have been something like this, these ziggurat, these step pyramids type of joints. And the idea was, you know, they're going to show off. They're going to show off. They're probably going to have a, most likely, a room or multiple rooms to gods in the Tower of Babel. And it was a sign of the great achievement of this civilization. But the civilization was told to spread out, and they were not obeying. And they're being prideful, and most likely, based upon what we know about these types of structures and what they would do there in the plain of Shinar, also idolatrous. So just a violation upon violation. So God divvied up the language. And then right after that, Genesis 11, it's at the end of Genesis 11, the family's introduced. Then you have Abram proper introduced. So we're just walking along here and seeing what's happening.
That built a tower, but rather to perpetuate his dead brother's memory. Hashem said, oh, such a person. That's the kind of person I can work with. He was very unique in that way. He wasn't, you know, if a person is looking to be chief rabbi, he's looking to make a name for himself, that's probably not the kind of person that God wants as a leader, just like Moses didn't want the job. And then God says, therefore, Biglau Zeh, in your name, all the nations of the world will be blessed. You were not looking for names, so I'm going to give you a name. So Abraham is following after God. He's keeping all the commandments of God. In Genesis chapter 12, Abraham listens to God and leaves the land that he was born in, his birthplace, going to an unknown place. And it's not like today, if you and I wanted to go and travel to Greece or some crazy...
True enough. And it is true that in Genesis 11:30, Sarai is introduced as barren. She had no child. And now they are leaving out of Ur of the Chaldeans, and they're going to go into Canaan just like they're told. And then you're going to get into Genesis chapter 12. And this is a great example of Abraham's faith. No doubt about that. That's why he's considered the father and the prototype of faith for us, no doubt.
We're told in Genesis 14, he rescues his nephew, and he does not take booty. He doesn't take anything for himself.
Himself later on when he lies about his sister. So he's not always perfect and flawless. And now he is a man who is great and to be admired, no doubt about that. But we don't want to over-lionize people.
It, in fact, we are told explicitly in the Torah, in Genesis 26, verse 5, it's specifically this, Ekev asher shama Avram b'koili, because Abraham hearkened unto my voice, vayishmar mishmarti, and he guarded my commandments, which means Abraham kept all of God's commandments. So openly says that. And by the way, please read it in context. You'll see that this is why Hashem is choosing Abraham and he's giving him a covenant. He kept all the mitzvahs. Now, this is a very...
Okay, does Genesis 26:5 mean that he kept all the commandments in the sense he never broke anything, he never violated anything? I mean, this would, if we're taking that in the way he seems to be taking it, this would mean Abraham was perfect, wouldn't it? So what does it say, Genesis 26? In your offspring, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So those are various terms that are associated often with the law, the instruction given at Sinai, but here they're emphasized for Abraham, and his obedience was unreserved. He did what he was supposed to do. It's sort of, God was already going to do this plan, right? He said, I choose you, you're going to go here, and God made it sort of unilateral. Here's what I will do for you and your offspring. Here's what I'm going to do. And so God is the actor one. He's the one who's active. Now, Abraham obeys. Not that he was perfect all the way, but just like God emphasizes, I will do what I said I'm going to do. Now, what does it say when you go up a little bit? Sojourn in this land, I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. So, Mr. Singer, I don't disagree with what you just said there in the sense that Abraham is obedient and it's exemplified. Now, not that means he's perfect, and so he still lied. But notice verse 3 is the foundation for it. It says, I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. That is actually prior. It's chronologically first, before talking about Abraham obeying. It's the oath that he swore, Yahweh. So he'll bring this to pass because of his own good pleasure and the fact that he never violates, he never lets us down. It's ultimately based upon that. It's more 26:3. 26:5 is a logical follow-up.
This is misappropriated. In Christian theology, when they're using the term that Abraham had faith, what they mean is they mean like lahavdil, like a Christian has faith in Jesus. That's not what the faith means in Tanakh. Faith means not that if you called me at 4 o'clock in the morning.
He's going to say he would come pick you up and all this stuff. There's Hebrew words and concepts, we can get into that, but in the Greek, pistis, that'd be where we'd focus and emphasize. And the whole point is that God will do what he said he will do. So our faith in Jesus is the same. We have faith that if we trust in Christ, that the perfect life he lived, he never violated Torah, he never violated God's holiness, will be imputed to our account. So just like Abraham believed God's promise and God saw fit to then accredit to his account righteous because of his trust in God, we put our trust in Messiah, and then what happens? Messiah's perfect life is granted to us into our account where we now possess his righteousness as a gift. It's actually a similar concept, and that's the whole point.
You, right? So you didn't have faith that I exist. You had trust that I, as your, in this case, as your friend, will come through for you.
Now, I hope Mr. Singer would come, come fix my tire or help me if I was stuck for him. And if I was his friend, I would do the same thing for you. Even if I didn't know you, I would do that on most days. Some days are better than others. But we don't just merely think Jesus existed and that's our faith. No, it's the same way we trust God, which to you say is idolatrous or blasphemous. But understand, it's much deeper than that. It's much deeper, our trust in him. And it's the way that Abraham trusted God, and that's the whole reason there's a parallel in the first place.
That's what faith means. It doesn't mean blind faith, or else you could believe in anything.
Where did the blind faith come in? If we just trusted Jesus existed, we could just be an average historian. Bart Ehrman knows Jesus existed. He's an agnostic atheist. Blind faith, Jesus lived and really did these things. What do you mean? And even his accusers couldn't show him that he did wicked stuff. Now, the Talmud makes up a bunch of stuff about him and gives him all kinds of nasty charges and whatnot, but during his life, they never could because he never did. But Abraham was not perfect. That's all I'm saying. Now, he brings up Habakkuk. I don't think I really brought this up, but he brought it up in the discussion here. Very important verse of the Reformation. Let's take a look here.
Incidentally, Habakkuk is frequently misapplied also. V'tzadik be'emunah yicheh, and a righteous person in his faith will be vindicated. That means that the person who's willing to wait for the redemption, that's the context is. So Abraham very much had done things to demonstrate that he was loyal to Hashem. You follow? So when Christians say, oh, Genesis 15, God imputed to him righteousness. No. Now, there's one other thing that was said here that my head nearly fell off.
Hold on. So Habakkuk 2:4. He says if we read it in context, we'll get it right. Well, the context is important, no doubt about that. But this is a certain kind of faith that Habakkuk is describing, and we promote as Christians. What kind of faith is it, this certain kind of faith we're talking about? It's faith that continues to trust and continues to cling to God's promises, even in the darkest days, even in the worst times, no matter what it seems like. That's the kind of faith that Habakkuk is promoting there and emphasizing, and that's the kind of faith we're saying you would have. So no matter what, you trust God. And this is what we bring up to emphasize that people are saved by grace through faith and that we should live by faith. This is the kind of faith that Habakkuk describes. I don't see how we're taken out of context. All we're saying is you trust in him no matter what. It actually lines up perfectly with Genesis 15:6. He's saying that people are corrupting it, but how are they corrupting it?
Because this Christian called Abraham, I didn't even want to say it out of my mouth. I really want to say it out of my life. He called Avram Avinu, who was, God was his shield. He was an extraordinary...
No. I don't remember saying Abraham was a liar. I remember saying Abraham lied. In the clip he played, I didn't say Abraham was a liar. Now, if I did, I could see why I might say it. My preference would be to say that Abraham lied, not that Abraham was a liar. I don't remember saying that, and I know it wasn't in the clip. So this may be a bit of exaggeration, Mr. Singer. However, I did say Abraham lied, which you actually agree to. You're just saying there's a rational reason for it. Now, that's where we're going to go. But notice what he just said. Abraham, who God was his shield. That's the point. Since God was his shield, he shouldn't have had to have lied about his sister, only being his sister, because she was a half-sister, when she was his wife. He shouldn't have had to lie about that because God was his shield. The trust of God should have been so deep, he wouldn't have had to have lied for that. Do you see? That's the whole point.
The only person in history that Hashem called my friend.
That's true, too. That's true. And David is described as a man after God's own heart. Did anyone else get that kind of description in the Hebrew Bible? A man after God's own heart. No. And yet, what did he do? What did he do? He took his neighbor's wife and killed an innocent husband to cover up for the crime. That's what he did, while he himself had wives. And yet he's a man after God's own heart. Abraham is a friend of God, always. And yet he lied. Mr. Singer, we love Abraham. We love the Hebrew Scriptures. But we need to be nakedly honest. Abraham lied. If Abraham was around during the days of the temple, not just for that, but for all kinds of things, he would have had to went to temple, and he would have had to participate in the Day of Atonement. Do you see? He would have. And he rejoiced when he saw Jesus' day. John 8. That's a whole other story.
See Isaiah 41, verse 8 and 9. He called Abraham a liar. He called Abraham a liar.
Play the clip, man.
Isn't that disgusting? Doesn't you want to, it's hard to imagine anyone that.
I need to go. You know what I'm going to do while this is playing? I'm going to go look at the transcript of the show and see if I said liar. But I know it wasn't in that clip. But the point is that Abraham lied. That was the real point. But let's look. This is a little bit of pearl clutching, Mr. Singer. This is a little bit of a dramatic performance here, a little bit of theater. Okay? I appreciate what you're trying to do, but let's just say what we're saying, Let's go.
That all of us love more, and I can't wait for the resurrection to meet Avram Avinu. I mean, I can't wait to meet my great-great-great-grandfather. We all can't wait to see him. So this is a stupidity of stupidities. Now, why is he calling him a liar? You can all guess why. Because Abraham, to save a life, he said, we're going to say that his wife was really his sister, and they're not married, and therefore, because he knew that they'll kill me. So to save a life, you are allowed to lie in the Bible. And you know what's so strange about this? Christians frequently brag, and maybe they should, that there were Christians, not many, unfortunately, but there were some Christians that hid Jews during the Holocaust. Jews hid in their homes. Now,
okay. I just looked through the transcript of the show. I do not see the word liar anywhere in there. I don't see the word liar in there. I see Abraham, and I see all kinds of other things. By the way, this show that he's reviewing is on my channel. Originally took place on God Logic's channel, but it's up. Maybe Dinu or Nate, you guys could drop it in there. It says Debating Hebrew Israelites with God Logic. That's the title of the show. And in that, a guy promoting Noahide laws called in, and this was the discussion he's reviewing. So with all due respect, Mr. Singer, I didn't use the word liar for Abraham. I simply said he lied. Now, he goes on a little bit here and talks about the Holocaust. Now, I encourage you, Christians, to look at Corrie ten Boom and The Hiding Place. Look at that. That's an example. There are other examples where you do see faithful Christians who protected Jews during this egregious time of the World War II era in European and other contexts. And Corrie ten Boom and her family are a great example of The Hiding Place. Great stuff that you should look at. And that's not the only example. Now, he talks a little bit about his family's past right here. That's what he's discussing right now. I got the volume turned down as he's discussing it. No disrespect. We just can't cover everything. I'm kind of giving some commentary in between here. What he's saying is, well, hey, Christians, they laud the idea that they lied to hide Jews. And he says, which they did. And he kind of almost, the way he says it is a little off-putting because he says they brag about it. I mean, brag about it? I mean, is that something Christians are bragging about? We're just saying the fact. I mean, like, it's an odd way to show gratitude, Mr. Singer, for people who sacrificed a lot. It's an odd way to show gratitude, to say, oh, they're bragging about it. And he says, maybe they should. Well, but first of all, Christians aren't bragging about it. They're just saying what happened when they did it. Now, he is right. More should have done it. He is right about that. But he kind of poisoned the well in how he discusses about this. Where he makes it like, well, I don't want to go too far afield because really we're now talking about the Holocaust and the hiding place and things like that, and that's not really the nature of the discussion. I want to bring it back to the biblical text, but let's pick up and see where he's at in here, and we'll look at your comments. By the way, read through some. And
it really is it pains me that a Christian should say such a thing about Abraham.
He did lie. I never called him a liar, though. So it wasn't in the clip. You're saying I called Abraham a liar. But if I didn't call Abraham a liar, then you're saying I did, wouldn't that make you the liar? Now, maybe you just made a mistake, or maybe you kind of morph the idea of if someone says Abraham lied, therefore he is a liar. Now, there's a certain strict sense in which you could say, did you tell a lie, therefore you're a liar? That means we would all be liars. But the idea is that sort of as the characteristic, first name, last name says, I don't know what's going on here. I just got here, and it looks like you just became a member. Well, thank you, first name, last name, for first of all joining the channel. And let me tell you what's going on here real quick, since this is probably a good time to do it. So shout out to you for joining the channel. Shout out to the one brother, Mr. Alan Torres, who gave a super chat. And so we appreciate all the support. Here's what you get. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Let me explain. Tovia Singer is very important in the world of Christian Jewish discussion. I like what he does in a lot of ways because I like that he gets into details. Now, I'm going to read something about this, and I want to give a shout out to all the people who sent me this video, because I probably wouldn't have known this video existed. Abu sent this to me, Faithful to God sent this to me, and a friend of mine named Charles out of Dallas, Texas, Charles McCampbell, good brother, he sent it to me as well. And he does a little good kind of rundown that I thought was helpful, where he talks about Tovia Singer, and he is a counter missionary, and almost every rabbi knows who Tovia Singer is. He's done some debates, but he doesn't seem real big on debating. He more kind of criticizes or talks about other people's videos, and then he'll have callers call in, but they're usually not really known people or who are very good at being spokespeople for Christianity. And so I would like to see him, for example, debate Michael Brown again. I don't think that's going to happen, but why not? I'd love to be part of helping that happen. Or Rabbi Eduardo of Radar Apologetics. Wouldn't he be a great debate? Shout out to Radar. This is such a good brother and knows so much. You know, when will that happen, and why won't that happen? That should happen. Now, it seems that Mr. Singer has caused a lot of people, Jew and Gentile alike, to lose faith in Christ or to never have faith in him at all. Now, the people at Outreach Judaism think that's a good thing, and Tanakh Talk think that's a good thing. We don't think it's a good thing. He's got a 2-volume book, and by the way, Charles McCampbell is helping me know more about Tovia. He's writing some of this to me. 2-volume book called Let's Get Biblical, and he basically attacks Jesus in the New Testament. And his tactics sometimes aren't the most laudatory, as we can see here in certain parts of it. And so you don't want to fall for that. And it seems like probably his main target overall is probably, I don't know, Gentiles, it seems, perhaps. But I appreciate people sending this to me and talking about this. And so he got a hold of one of my videos. He got a hold of one of my videos. And they reviewed it, and now the video that he is talking in right now, that's about the missionary who twisted the Torah or corrupted the Torah, it was dedicated to me. It was geared towards me because he's responding to a video in which I am having a back and forth with someone who's pushing no-hide laws. So that's what's going on. So let's rewind this back and play this.
I'll give you many examples. I can give you 2 examples in the Torah where people lied to. I mean, Abraham is one of them.
Okay, so Abraham lied. That's all I was saying. I can give you examples where people lied to save a life. That's all I was saying. The idea of calling Abraham a liar, like that's all he is, no. But he was not perfect. And that's not the only example. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to open up Genesis 15 in a second here after I let him talk through this a little bit. This is going to be very important.
Life. Save a life, you're allowed to do that. The only 3 sins that you cannot violate to save a life. One of them is becoming a Christian. One of them is believing in the Trinity, meaning it's idolatry.
Now, I don't remember the Torah saying one of the things you couldn't do was become a Christian. Notice how targeted and specific this is. It's not become a Muslim. It's not become a Buddhist or a Hindu. It's become a Christian. Now he walks it back a little bit and explains that's because it has to do with the Trinity, that's idolatry. But listen, that's what you're saying, but if Messiah has come and revealed unto us the fuller nature of what the oneness of God entails, and by that I don't mean like oneness Pentecostal, I mean what his oneness look like, what it looks like, and as we see his triune nature, even as he is only one true God, we accept it as it is, a divine revelation. If he does that, it's not idolatrous to believe that. Now, you're saying he didn't, I understand that. But he's tailoring this in a way that's a little fudging the data there a little bit.
Then you have to rather die. If someone says, become a Christian or I'll kill you, you have to give your life.
Doesn't always happen. Like there was this guy that was supposed to be a Messiah, and he said he was a Messiah, and a lot of Jewish people followed him. And then they said, the Muslims, hey, you better convert to Islam or we're going to kill you. And he became a Muslim. The Messiah became a Muslim. Obviously, he wasn't the Messiah. Hurt a lot of people. That doesn't always happen. But he's just talking about Christians. But, Islam, that's a serious issue.
Someone says, kill him or I'll kill you. You have to die rather than commit murder. If someone says, go sleep with an immediate relative, you have to rather die than be over than violate the forbidden relationships of Gili Arroyos. But other than that, I'll give you examples. I'll give you examples in the Torah. We have people who lied to save lives, and God bless them for doing it. Shifra and Puah, as an example, these were midwives, right? They were ordered by the Egyptians that when a Jewish woman, when a Hebrew woman would have a child, so if it's a female girl, let her live. But if it's a male, they have to be thrown into the water, right? What happened? What did Shifra and Puah do? They said that these Jewish women, these Hebrew Israelite women, they give birth quicker than Egyptian women do, and therefore they got away. And Hashem blessed them. Hashem gave them great blessings to their homes because they saved the lives of male children. You hear that? They lied. They completely lied. But to save a life, to say if the Nazis are pounding at your door, if the Ku Klux Klan is pounding at your door looking for a colored man who you have hidden in your basement, 100%, you must lie. Tragically, Anne Frank was betrayed. And tragically, she was betrayed by a Jewish woman because we have there were Jews who collaborated. Like today, you have self-hating Jews. Rachav, another woman who lied. You remember in the book of Joshua, chapter 2, spies were sent into Canaan, was sent into Jericho. She was a prostitute, and she hid them and lied about their whereabouts. And God blessed her, and her family was saved. Another example of someone who lied to save a life. So when you're saving a life, you could lie. It's open in the Torah. You could lie. You must lie to save a life. Every person who saves a life through lying, it's a great blessing. Okay, so this is all nonsensical. When Genesis 15, when God is saying that I see that you have faith, that means that you kept all my commandments, everything that God asked of Abraham, and he will ask more of Abraham. Abraham was tested 10 times.
I mean, skipping the lie for a second, was Abraham faithful in the matter of Hagar? I mean, this isn't hard to do, to see the flaws of our heroes, including the patriarchs. What if Abraham had fully trusted God and not tried to help him out? Because we all falter, and he faltered there. What happened? What was the result because of his indiscretion in the matter of Hagar? Isn't it obvious the result that still is with us today? We can't just overlook the wrong,
He's famously tested in chapter 22 with Isaac, right? So by the time you get to 26, verse 5, where Hashem says, I see you kept all my commandments, all my charges, and everything, and therefore, biglal zeh, because of this, I'm going to bless you. So he had faith. This is how the Christian is doing it. Now, why is the Christian doing it? Because he's following Paul. Now, he claims he's not following Paul, but he is following Paul. He's following Galatians chapter 3, verse 6, where Paul seizes, marshals, misappropriates this gorgeous passage from Genesis 15, verse 6, to say that you just have to have faith and you don't have to keep the law. So I'm going to finish up by this point. In the Pauline literature, having faith or believing is held in contrast to keeping commandments, but it's not the case at all. When Habakkuk says that the context in the book of Habakkuk is, in chapter 2, verse 4, is that, look, the redemption is coming, and people shouldn't be puffed up and bloated, and the person who really is willing to wait for the redemption, that person will live by his faith. The context is not that you don't have to keep Shabbos, the Sabbath any longer, or keep kosher any longer. The context is that you're willing to trust that the Lord will keep his promise despite the fact that things don't look good right now. It's very much your behavior and interaction. People scream at the Jews, we call ourselves the chosen people. But it's these kind of people, and it's this kind of ideas, especially in Reformed theology, especially in Calvinist theology, that believes that there's a certain elect that were chosen to be saved because this is all nonsensical.
I find it very interesting that Romans, Galatians, and Hebrews all misquote it by saying righteousness shall live, or the righteous shall live by faith.
It's all over.
But Habakkuk says the righteous will live by faithfulness.
No. You have to read Habakkuk in context. You have to back up a verse. I'm going to tell you this. The Talmud says, I never do this because you don't need the Talmud for this. You should always know that when a person who has another religion uses your Bible to prove something to you, always look at the context. So the context is that there are people who are not patient and don't trust that the salvation will come. There are people who have a bloated personality, but the person who waits patiently and trusts in the Lord, so this person is righteous because he had faith, meaning he had trust that God will save him. This is very, very critical, that God will keep his promise. It doesn't mean he had faith, like, I just trust in the Lord. No, it means that he knows that the redemption will happen. They're all guilty of this, of taking this passage in Habakkuk out of context. The context is that the person who waits for God's salvation and doesn't give up, that's the context. So it's very much an action that a person does. That's why the person is considered righteous. You're very, very correct. Good. Paul uses this, and of course the author of the book of Hebrews uses this. They all weaponize this passage, and it's a grand mistake. They are making faith as though it's antinomian against ritual commandments. This is a blunder completely.
No, that's not what we're doing. Okay, I want to show something here. This is from Geisler. Norm Geisler was a Christian apologist from yesteryear. And he talks about in his book called Philosophy, it's an introduction to philosophy. He also has another one called Christian Ethics. I thought I had it in my Logos library, but I can't find it. He talks about different views. This is chapter 27 of his book on philosophy. And I just want to show a few things because these are discussions that we have in Christian morals and ethics. We discuss these things. These are important things to discuss. And so it's not like we are unaware. And a view that Geisler is discussing here, so these are different views of ethics. We have the third alternative view, then there's the greater good view, and there's a number of others. So in that, he writes this. I want to read this. It talks about falsification for life-saving. There are numerous cases in Scripture where God implicitly or explicitly commended the faith of those involved in intentional deception in order to save lives. Obadiah hid 100 prophets to save their lives. 1 Kings 18. Elisha deceived his would-be captors in order to save his life. 2 Kings 6. Rahab hid the spies by faith. Hebrews 11. To save their lives. Indeed, the key to the spies' safety was Rahab's outright lie to the men at her door. Joshua 2:5. Finally, the Hebrew midwives, he brought those up, both disobeyed government and lied to the king. Exodus 1. In order to save the male babies. And in this case, the text clearly says, clearly and unequivocally, that's probably the best example, by the way, that God blessed them and gave them families as a result of what they did, since all things in the Old Testament are for us, Romans 15, and happened for our example, 1 Corinthians 10, it seems difficult to avoid the conclusion that these were God-approved examples of how he wants us to behave in similar moral conflicts. Now, that's the key, is that they are moral conflicts because we live in a fallen world. No doubt about that. Now, what I want to do is actually look at the text and do some analysis of it that I think will be helpful in this discussion. So we go to Genesis 12, and we're going to see the context in which Abraham lies. Okay, are you guys ready? This is important stuff here. Let me real quick bring this on the screen. Listen, if someone's coming in to the show, will you guys who have been here kind of let them know what's going on, for lack of a better word? Because I know we have some people, different people coming in, and everyone's not 100% clear. Like, what are we doing here today? What's going on? And I want to make sure that people do get a chance to know and to be aware. But first, I want to. Well, I was trying to share something, but this may not work. Oh, there it is. Okay. Just real quick. I'm just going to put this on the screen so people can see this. It's going to be too big for a second, but that way they come in, they have some idea what we're referring to here. I'm going to put this on the screen. So listen, Mr. Singer, I'm going to go into this, and I don't know if the show is too long for you to watch. I do a little bit longer live streams. I have no problem talking to you for a discussion, for a further thing, but also we could also work together. You may say, what? I know that you've talked about the Hebrew Israelites, and in my work of apologetics, a big part of what I do is debunking Hebrew Israelites. And as I do that, I am a friend of the Jewish community and of Israel, and I'd be willing to discuss some of that with you if you were willing to do that sort of thing. Together in some context. I do not believe because men disagree they have to hate each other or be disrespectful or anything like that. And so I hope that you feel the same way. And so this is an open invitation to work together in some way in the future if you are up for such a thing, either on my channel or yours. It may not be the kind of thing you're up for, but I nonetheless respect you regardless of your response to that, and hope that we could perhaps. Okay, so here we are in Genesis 12. I'm going to read it from the LSB. And Yahweh said to Abram, go forth from your land and from your kin and from your father's house to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Notice how God's going to do this no matter what. God is good like that. So Abram went forth as Yahweh had spoken to him. It's going to say Yahweh. It's the LSB. That's the way that they translate it, which is what it says, the Tetragrammaton. As Yahweh had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Now, Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. So Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's possession. So it goes down, okay? So look, they came into the land of Canaan. Abraham obeyed, right? Abraham took Sarah's wife, Lot his brother's son, and all the possessions which they had accumulated, the persons which they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go forth to the land of Canaan. Thus they came to the land of Canaan, all right? And now they're here, and you see this, okay, this is good, this is good. Now look at verse 10, though. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. Now, should Abram have left Canaan in the first place? Should he have left? Where did God tell him to go? Where did God tell him to go? To Canaan. But where is he going? To Egypt. Now you say, well, there's a famine. Yes, but should he have even left in the first place? God is going to take care of him no matter what. He may be even exhibiting a lack of trust in God by even going down to Egypt. You're not supposed to rely on Egypt. You're supposed to rely on God himself. But he goes down there, and it happened as he drew near to entering Egypt. So it seems like he started becoming afraid. That he said to Sarah, his wife, now behold, I know that you're a woman of beautiful appearance. So she probably like that, getting a compliment. Is he just now noticing? No. There actually is a source that says he was walking by and looked in a puddle. This is a Jewish source. And I saw her reflection. It's like, oh, man, we better do something about this. Now, the Egyptians did have a twisted sense of ethics in these days, apparently. A lot of A&E kingdoms did. And what's the deal? What's the deal here? Okay, here's the deal. They didn't believe in adultery, so they wouldn't want to take someone's wife outright, you know? But if they wanted someone's wife bad enough, these are like the rulers and the kings, they would kill the husband so they could have the wife, because that way it wasn't adultery. So they would commit murder in order to avoid adultery. This would happen in certain cases. So Abram's worried about that because he's going down to Egypt. Now, should he have been going down there is one question, but look at what he's going to counsel to his wife Sarah. And it will be So he's imagining what's going to happen. Now let's find out. When the Egyptians see you, that they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Now, and in order to exonerate Abram, a lot of the Jewish sources that I read basically just talk about how wicked and evil the Egyptians were, and how Abraham knew just because they were exceeding wickedness. But it's interesting, who's exonerated in these texts? With this one in the Abimelech text, we're going to find out. They will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. So Tovia is making the point, in order to save a life. Well, what life would Abraham be saving here? Not his wife's, but his own. You may say, well, self-preservation's okay. But God just told him he's going to make a great nation out of him. How is God going to then turn around and let him die? He's not. He's not. God knows what's going on. He knows about the famine, and yet he told him to go to Canaan. And he knows about these Egyptians. He's not going to let him die after he just told him that. Do you understand? But Abraham now shows a wavering because he says, well, they're going to kill me. Is God going to let that happen? Guys, what do we think? Never. No. Do you see why this is a problem? I hope you do. But what's he going to do? Please say that you are my sister, obviously in order to conceal the fact that it's a wife, because she was a half-sister. This was allowed at this time. So that may go well with me because of you, and that I may live on account of you. So basically you can save my life. Now it happened when Abram came into Egypt that the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Therefore he treated Abram well because of her, and sheep and oxen and donkeys and male and female servants and female donkeys and camels came into his possession. So the idea is, if he's the brother, it's that he's sort of a guardian. So it's almost like we pay you this because we're taking her into the harem, and this is what you get. So they're being fair in that sense. You know, this is how they were in those days. And so he's getting all this stuff because of it. Do you see what's going on so far? Okay. Now let's continue on and see what's going to happen with this. Now, I got some notes that I'm going to bring up here. Just give me a second. I want to bring some of these up in regards to this passage that I think are important for us to understand. We're in Genesis 12, verses 10 through 20, if you're wanting to know where we're at. Now, first of all, what we're going to see in this passage in general as we continue into it is that God had already promised to bless Abraham. This is unconditional covenant on God's part. Abraham fails here, but even when Abram fails, God still fulfills his covenant promises, just like with Israel and just like with the elect of today. He still fulfills his covenant promises even when we fail. Just think about the nation of Israel. He would say, I'm not doing this because of you, but for my name's sake. Same thing here. So Abram doesn't do right, but God protects him. He just said, I'm going to protect you. So here we are in Genesis, and I want you to pick up something. Notice of verse 16 what Abram was given. Sheep, oxen, donkeys, male, female servants. Follow me now. Abram got a female Egyptian servant. Why does that matter? What was Hagar? She was a female Egyptian servant. Who is Hagar? Mother to the Ishmaelites, the Arabs. Great source of contention for Israel and the Jews, yes? It started because of Abram's leaving Canaan, then lying. So he wouldn't have been in Egypt, first of all, if he trusted God and stayed in Canaan, number one. Number two, he wouldn't have received the Egyptian female servant. It's plural, but I'm talking about Hagar now. If he wouldn't have lied and said, this is just my sister, because that wouldn't have happened. God would have protected him anyway. We don't know how, but he would have protected him. So guess where he gets an Egyptian handmaid? Here. That causes great problems. Don't you see how our lies and our lack of trust get us in trouble later on? Are you guys following? We should be. We should be, because this sets the stage for conflict between Sarah and Hagar, because Sarah's going to say, well, God said he was going to give us kids, hasn't done it yet. What if Hagar gives you the kid, and then I'll take care. But it didn't work out, did it? Because then Isaac came, and Ishmael wasn't the child of promise, so there was conflict in chapter 16. Then gets kicked out of the house. Eventually, there's conflict between Isaac and Ishmael in chapter 21. First, there was the jealousy between Sarah and Hagar. This is the source of the contention. To this day, the Jewish-Arab conflict. To this day. Do you understand? Now, when this all comes out, Abraham is going to be rebuked by the Pharaoh. It's going to be taking the form of 3 questions. First, what is this that you've done unto me? See, Pharaoh's going to suffer because of Abram's lie. For Pharaoh, it was a sin of ignorance. And then secondly, he's going to say, why did you not tell me that she was your wife? He's saying, why did you lie? Why did you hide the truth? Thirdly, why did you say she's my sister? Took her wife. Now, do you guys seeing this? Yes, he is amazing the way he trusted God. But here, because of fear of man, he wants to save his own life, so he places his wife's honor in jeopardy. What if Pharaoh would have had relations with her? Did he think about that? What if Pharaoh would have had relations with her? Because of the way he misrepresented their relationship. Now, she colluded. Now, you may think that it was an act of self-sacrifice, okay, on her part for her husband. But let me show you something here. I want to show you something. The stuff I'm saying, it's not just me. There is commentary on this verse and on these discussions. And he acted as if I was just this Christian ready and willing to throw Abram under the bus just for Jesus' sake. No. Look what Rashi says. Now, this comes from a book by Michael, how do you say it, Karasu? It's misspelled there in the format, but you can see it. It's Genesis, an Introduction and Commentator. It's the Commentator's Bible. It's from the JPS, 2018. Look what Rashi says about this passage. If you respect any commentator, you respect Rashi. Quote, there was a famine in the land, in that land only, not on earth, as the Hebrew might be understood. This was a test of Abraham to find out whether he would have second thoughts about the Holy Ones telling him to go to Canaan now that he was enticing him to leave it. So Rashi seems to indicate, well, maybe he shouldn't have left in the first place. How would you take what Rashi just said there? Now I want to show you what Rambam said. Nachmanides, Rambam. Look what he says. This one is even more stark. Same collation of commentaries. Listen to this. This is fascinating what he says here. This is very important. This is a quote from Nachmanides, Rambam. You should know, however, that our father Abraham sinned greatly. And then you have the parenthetical, if inadvertently, to kind of lessen the blow. But he literally says he sinned greatly by putting a stumbling block of transgression before his righteous wife out of fear that they might kill him. He ought to have trusted in the Holy One to save him and his wife and all that they had. Yes, and that's all I was saying. For God has the power to help and to save. Even leaving the land he had been commanded to go to just because there was a famine was sinful. Notice, here you have Rambam agreeing with Rashi. For in famine he will redeem you from death. He quotes Job there. In fact, this is the reason his descendants were condemned to be exiled to Egypt under the control of Pharaoh. Alongside righteousness there is wickedness and sin. He's saying that God punished the Hebrew people because of this act of Abraham. Tovia Singer acted aghast about me saying Abraham lied. I never called Abraham a liar. I can't find the clip or the quote of me saying that, and I just searched the transcript. So I feel as if he was misrepresenting me to make the job easier. And he was saying I could never repeat it, but I never referred to him in that manner. But look how the sages refer. Yeah, exactly, Michelle. Michelle, you caught it. Sinned greatly. Now, this is about to be the worst one. I want you to know, I did not write this. This is from the same source, which a lot of Jewish scholars know about this source because it's put it by the JPS. This is Abarbanel. Abarbanel. I have trouble saying it. Isaac Abarbanel. He lived 1437 to 1508. Look what he said when he asked questions about this. This is wild. This is the way it was translated in the JPS source. Even if the Egyptians would kill Abraham to take Sarah, isn't it shameful to choose life by pimping your wife? Do you see this? This is, I didn't write this. Now, let me show you real quick here. Let me show you who we're looking at, okay? Let me show you. This is important because the way that he kind of dealt with this to see these things. Let me show you. Let me show you here who these folks were. All right, this is not the best way to do this, but whatever. Nachmanides right there. All right. 1194 to 1270. Very important. Sometimes commonly known as Rambam. Moses ben Naaman. From Aragon, died in Jerusalem. And Aragon, Spain. All right. That's him. Very important. And do you see what he said? So we saw what Rambam said. Now Rashi, very important. Born 1040, died 1105. French. Rashi, French. And then Abarbanel from Portugal, died in Venice. 1437 to 1508. Those are the folks we just looked at. And again, look at what he said. He said Abraham pimped his wife. Now look, that is a translation that Karasak gave, or Karisic. Genesis, Introduction and Commentary. He collates different sources. It's JPS 2018. This is page 114 where this is. I just want to point this out. So I'm not crazy with what I said, and I never called him a liar, you know? So look, this is all that was happening here. The whole point was for me to show that Abraham doesn't have inherent righteousness as he himself sins, okay? And let me show you, I think I got one more I want to show you. This is from a scholarly book that kind of brings together things the rabbis said, for example, from Tanith 11a. Okay, the book is Paul Isaac Hirschon. It's called Genesis with a Talmudical Commentary, published in 1885. Here's what he says, the rabbi said. This is a collation of it. If in a time of national calamity, a man withdraws himself from his kindred and refuses to share in their sorrows, his two guardian angels come and lay their hands upon his head and say, this man has isolated himself from his country in the day of its need. Let him not live to see and enjoy the day when God shall restore its prosperity. When the community is in trouble, let no man say, I will go home and eat and drink, and peace be unto thee, O my soul. Now, the point is to bring that up in relationship to this discussion about Abraham should have not left in the first place. So I never said Abraham was a liar. I did point out his sin for lack of trust of God. I understand what it was. It was, a sin of omission because he's concealing something because it is his wife, or his wife is a half sister. But what does God do? He protects him. God would have found another way to protect him, but here's how he protects him. Yahweh struck Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. Now let me just show you real quick how odd some of the commentaries get from the sages. You see where it says that his house was struck with great plagues? It seems obvious that it's saying Yahweh struck. By the way, this is a precursor to what happened later in the Exodus. But it's clear that he struck the household there, the family. One of the commentators, the Jewish commentators, literally says that the walls were sick. This is the kind of stuff you get in some of the commentators, and you're like, okay, that's not what it means, but nonetheless, Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me?" So he figured there's something going on. "Why did you not tell me that she was your wife?" So he figured it out, right? "Why did you say she is my sister?" So that I took her for myself as a wife. So now here is your wife, take her and go. So it appears, and there's sources on this that kind of elaborate, Pharaoh was not able to have relations with her, it appears, because of the sickness. Now, it doesn't literally say that. Now, she's not pregnant yet, so the Messiah's line's not going to be called into question, but because this is 25 years apart between the next time when he does this, because he does this again. Maybe he did it a lot. We have two accounts here. What's the point about all this? The whole story with Abram, all these things, keep on showing the endangerment of the promise. And so here's an example, because if another man had relations with her, then it wouldn't be Abraham's seed. This would call into question this. But see, Abram put his wife out there, and he's the one who was willing to endanger the promise. But God protected him. But yet Pharaoh indicts him, rightfully so. "Why did you say she is my sister?" So that I took her for myself. Now here's your wife, take her and go. It appears Abram was able to keep the stuff he got, and that includes the people, and that's why he got Hagar. So this had repercussions. Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that belonged to him. Okay, that's not defensible behavior. The point is not that Abraham's some horrible sinner. He's the father. He's the pattern of our faith. He trusted God in a way most of it could never even imagine. To be in paradise is described as Abraham's bosom. Jesus Christ uses this. What does that mean? It means to be close to God is to be close to Abraham, or if you're where Abraham is, you're close to where God is. You see? That's beautiful. That's powerful. But it doesn't mean he was perfect. Now he's going to lie to Abimelech. By the way, Abimelech is a title. Similar to Pharaoh is a title. It's actually not a proper name. Abimelech is a title. Now let's take a look at this. Genesis 20. Abraham journeyed from there toward the land of the Negev and settled between Kadesh and Shur, and then he sojourned in Gerar. Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." By the way, with the Hebrew Israelites, these uses help us understand what the Bible means when it says sojourn. It's someone passing through, but not a permanent resident, or even someone who is intending to stay or live there. They're sojourning. So these guys try to make sojourners, at least the one Westers, well, some of the one Westers, try to make it, just Israelites, but sojourners are generally not that, because they're of a different people, of a different country. Abraham said of Sarah, his wife. Notice how the narrator is basically calling Abraham out. What do I mean by that? Do you see how the narrator is calling him out? Because it says, of his wife, he said this. Do you see how that calls him out? Because it's like, well, hey, this is his wife, but yet he's going to say something that's a half-truth. It's like the narrator is calling him out, is the way I would say it, because it said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Now, some of the liberals will try to deconstruct this and say, oh, look, this is clearly, they were familiar with this, and so they inserted it, and so it's just a repetition of the story. No. You know what is more rational to think? This is his 25-year policy. He did this often wherever he went and didn't learn from the mistake, and maybe these two times it went wrong, so much so that Isaac, his son, repeated the tactic, because Isaac does the same thing. It doesn't have to be the invention of these accounts. I would say it's used to highlight God's faithfulness to his covenant despite Abraham's lack of faithfulness in certain contexts. God came to Abimelech in a dream on the night and said to him, so this is immediate, behold, you are a dead man. Hold on. Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman you have taken, for she is married. Now, Abimelech had not come near her. So now it's closer to Sarah's pregnancy. It's explicitly stated they didn't have relations. Do you see how this would put the promise in jeopardy? Then he said, Lord, will you kill a nation even though righteous? Did he not himself say to me, she is my sister? Notice how God is dealing with the pagan king here. And she herself also said, he is my brother. He's saying, I didn't know. They lied. And now notice how your lies cause other people harm. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. Then God said to him in the dream, indeed, I know that in the integrity of your heart you have done this, and I also held you back from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. By the way, some of you aren't going to like this, but this is where my reformed views of God's sovereignty come into play. God literally says he held him back from sinning. But God can't impugn upon our actions. You know, God's a gentleman, and he wouldn't impede our will or things we want to do. He wouldn't mess with our actions. He just lets it. God literally says, I kept you from doing this. I held you back. The indication is if I wouldn't have, you would have. And then you would have been in trouble because I got Abraham's back, but I wasn't going to let that happen, so I didn't let you do it because I knew you were innocent in the matter. I also held you back. I didn't let you do it. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. This shows God's sovereignty, doesn't it? Don't try to tell me God's not sovereign. Don't try to tell me he's not in control. Don't try to tell me he doesn't do what he wants and override man's will, if you want to put it that way. He does. So now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. So he's going to intercede. He's going to mediate. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, and all who are yours. Ooh. So Abimelech arose early. He's going to get this done right away. And then called all his servants and told all these things in their hearing. And the men were greatly afraid. And Abimelech called Abram and said to him, what have you done to us? How have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. Notice how the narrator uses the pagan kings to call out Abraham for his error. So this is not commended in the text like the case of the Hebrew midwives. It is not. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what have you seen that you have done this thing? And Abram said, because I said, surely there is no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. So he's saying because of you guys. He's not really taking responsibility here. He should have said, I was afraid and I didn't trust God, man. I'm just saying. Besides, now notice how he shows it's a lie here. She actually is my sister, but come on, bro. The daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it happened when God caused me to wander from my father's house. Interesting way to put it. That I said to her, this is the loving kindness which you will show me. Do this for me, baby. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Notice. Remember I said it was a 25-year policy? This is what Abram asked her to do everywhere. And then it shows these two times when it went wrong. It didn't work out. But he had always done this, and that's why Isaac did it too. So when you find these biblical critics who are like, this happened twice, it's clearly a motif that's being developed, a literary device, we don't know why, but there's familiar. No, this is the policy that he had adopted. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother. Abimelech took sheep and oxen, male and female slaves, and gave them to Abraham and returned his wife Sarah to him. Now, Abimelech, he's like blessing him. And this is what's so interesting. Even when Abram does wrong, God has his back to the point where he still blesses him in the context. That is how he is fulfilling his covenant to him. And it's not because of Abraham's merit. The story here almost shows the opposite, that despite Abraham's action, God still blesses him because he will be faithful to his covenant. God is the one to commend, first and foremost, not any human actor. Abimelech said, behold, my land is before you, settle wherever it is good in your sight. So he was even better than the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh, didn't touch her. Called him out. It seems he didn't touch her. Called her out, but he also said, get out of here. Really, Abraham could have received the death penalty for his lie. He could have. So Pharaoh didn't do that, but he did say, get out of here. Abimelech says, hey, man, wherever you want, my land is yours, whatever is good in your sight. To Sarah, he said, behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It's funny, he says, your brother. Behold, it is your indication before all who are with you and before all who you are cleared. I'm going to let you go. It's all good. I want to be one of those who bless you. Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservant so that they bore children. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. For Yahweh had utterly shut all the wombs of the household of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. What's interesting about this is, notice that Sarah was barren, and God is shutting these wombs, and now he's releasing them. Again, God is in total control. He is sovereign. Now, do you see this? Now, there's a lot to this, isn't there? There's a lot to take in, isn't there? And it's quite a fascinating story. I want to make some comments about it, and I want to see what kind of comments you guys want to give too. This is sort of a case where we're going through and we're looking at the Bible together, and I think it's very important and very helpful. So it's not just about Mr. Singer per se. It's about deeper issues that are very important, as he brought out. And I thank him really for this chance to be able to have this discussion. So let's kind of review and look. We've got this theme going on here, the endangering of the ancestors, right? This covenant that God promised Abraham immediately begins working out in Genesis 12. That was the first account that we read regarding Pharaoh. And we see all the problems that ensued. If you missed that, you got to go back and look at this. Now, we saw how Rambam is on our side on this, how Rashi is on our side in this, how Nachmanides is on our side on this, and Isaac Abarbanel. Okay? We showed that in various ways. Archaeology is also on our side. Now, this is a different matter, but archaeology verified what is described in the account of Genesis 12, because we got paintings in the tomb. This is for the conscious community folks out there who think the Bible's made up. Paintings in the tomb of Kumhotep III and Beni Hagan. They date back to the time of Sesostris II. All right, this is almost 1800 years before Christ. And what do they show? They show the arrival of 37 Asiatic men, women, and children around the same time period of Abram. Now, it depends how you date all this stuff. But it shows that where Egypt would regularly have these migrations of Asiatics, as they were called, into Egypt, and especially in times of famine. That's what we see in the Joseph story as well. Now, you have Abram so sure the Egyptians are going to act this way, but it's like, well, hold on. Even if they believe your story, how would that discourage the Egyptian who's attracted to Sarah from killing the brother escorting her in order to possess her? Now, it's not a guarantee; it's a gamble. But the idea is they would maybe pay him off instead, which they did as the caretaker. But hypothetically, they could have been like, "We're going to kill you too." Okay, Abram throughout the story receives direct revelation from God. I think that's why he's called in the Abimelech cycle a prophet. I'm sorry, and this is very fascinating as he receives direct revelation. No doubt about that. We see both in Pharaoh's account and the Abimelech account that they raise questions that condemn Abraham as doing something wrong here, as well as the narrator subtly, if you pick up on the clues. So the irony here is that the pagan kings condemning the patriarch for their sin. You see? Now, we have an interesting thing with the way Elohim is used in the Hebrew, where it says, "The God caused me to wander." I'm going to read directly from a source here that I have that I think might be helpful. This is from wait, no, that's not the right spot. Let me make sure I got the right spot. Yeah, Old Testament and Introduction. Let's take a look here at that part. I want to share this real quick. Herman Gunkel, Genesis. Where'd it go? Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. The phrase "God caused me to wander" in Hebrew literally reads "the gods," plural. They caused me to wander. They is plural. The word God, Elohim, it is a plural noun. That's true. But when it's used to pagan gods, it is translated in the plural. But when it is used to the true God, it's translated in the singular, because normally the verb that goes with the noun is in the singular, not in the plural. So Elohim itself is a plural noun, but then if it's describing false gods, they'll put a plural verb with it. But if they're describing the one true God, they put a singular verb with it. Understand? So the verb is in the singular, not in the plural. So it lets you know, okay, there you go, just God. There are exceptions, though, where both the noun and the verb are plural when speaking of the true God. Now, that's interesting. What do you do with that? Why is that? These exceptions. We as Trinitarians would say because it indicates a plurality in the Godhead. You may not like that answer, but what is the answer? This verse is an example. The plural verb used, Elohim, is very unusual when used with one true God. But here in this place, we come where it says, "The gods, they caused me to wander." It's a place where you have the plural verb with the plural noun. But yet, who's it talking about? It's talking about the one true God. So what's the reason for that? There's three other examples of that. Genesis 35:7, 2 Samuel 7:23, and Psalm 58:11. This implies a plurality in the Godhead. I bring that up because he went after the Trinity, and I just want to briefly show, even in the context, we have things that make you go, Now, when we look at this, let me see. I'm not going to read all these notes. I have quite a bit of notes, actually. And by the way, I posted about this on Facebook. Can you guys drop the link to my Facebook channel where I put an article up on this? It was a written response to Tovia Singer. A written response, and I thought it was pretty helpful. Thought it was good. Let me know what you think. It's funny, though, what the things you come across when you read this. According to certain... Hold on. Certain accounts here, the sages claim that at first Abraham attempted to conceal his wife as he was going into Egypt by hiding her in the luggage. Interesting, right? Now, let me read a comment here from Arnold Frutenbaum. This is part of the Messianic Bible Study Collection. He was a Messianic Jewish believer. And look what he says here. I'm going to quote him. If anyone can be said to be at fault here, it is certainly not the king of Egypt. Abraham comes into Egypt telling a half-truth, with the result that Sarah is taken from him and put into Pharaoh's harem. At least this one time in the long relationship between the Jews and the Egyptians are not at fault, at least this once. Nevertheless, in the outworking of the Abrahamic covenant, God begins to operate on Abraham's behalf. That's a good synopsis of the story, and he's exactly right. That's exactly what happens. So that's what goes down. Now, there's some other comments that are interesting here from Arnold Frutenbaum, and again, I love his work. Look what he says here. Perhaps the above two passages indicate the first real attempt to destroy the Jews. God had already promised that he would bless the Gentiles through the Jews and that the Jews would continue through Abraham's son, Isaac. Both of these incidents occurred before Isaac was born, and a definite attempt can be seen here to keep Isaac from being born by taking away his future mother. If Satan could keep Isaac from being born, then the Jews would die out with the death of Abraham. Unknowingly, Abimelech cursed Abraham in such a way as to destroy the Jews, and now God curses Abimelech. See how it's the covenant being worked out? When God operates on the cursing aspect of the Abrahamic covenant, he works on the sub-principle, curse for curse in kind. Arnold Frutenbaum, good work, good work. So, later on, this kind of marriage would be forbidden in the law of Moses. Leviticus 18:9, 18:11, 20:17, Deuteronomy 27:22, Ezekiel 22:11. But this law was not enforced in Abraham's day. Now, ultimately, I believe there's a genetic reason for that, and maybe even a population reason. So it was not the same kind of problem it would be now, you know? Even though there are people still who do the half-sister thing and sometimes even other stuff. So Genesis is a lot of things, but you know a lot of what Genesis is, especially once you get into 12 and on. It's the outworking of the Abrahamic covenant on the individual level, because you don't have sort of Israel proper yet. It's working it out on the individual level, and you see that especially with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the sons, especially. This is sort of a philosophy of history kind of understanding. Specifically, bless, bless, curse, curse. Understand? Some good articles on that. I'm going to have to skip recommending those because we're going to run out of time here. But this is a fascinating thing. Now, let me bring up one thing that some people online are taken to call the director's cut of Genesis. It's the book of Jubilees. Jubilees should not be trusted. The reason why I bring this up is because Jubilees takes this account and does different things with it. The Ethiopians, I think, use Jubilees, and I know GOCC, the Hebrew Israelite group, does it. Now, it's dated to the middle of the 2nd century before Christ. It was composed in Hebrew, but it mainly survives in its Ethiopic translation. We got 15 fragmentary manuscripts of this Hebrew text that are discovered at Qumran, and it does show that the Book of Jubilees had some influence on certain sections of early Judaism. 1/4 of that book is devoted to Abraham. And if you look at the section of Jubilees, it follows the sequence and content of the Torah sources, Genesis 12 to 25. But here's what's interesting. Even though I am saying it's not something should be trusted as actual history, it does attempt to paint Abraham in a certain light. And guess what? The second attempt for Abraham to pass off his wife as his sister to a king outside Canaan in Genesis 20, it's omitted entirely in Jubilees. Meaning, I think there's some level of embarrassment that the father of the faith did this, and so it gets omitted there. Now, in general, Jubilees has this extensive, largely kind of rewritten Abraham cycle, as it's called, and he's kind of portrayed and reshaped, strictly as this model of law-abiding piety. It's not that there's not truth to that, but it's just not absolute, So I think that's important. Now, there's good books on this. There's a book by Van Rooten, Brill, so it's going to be very expensive. It's called Abraham and the Book of Jubilees. And then there's another one, came out in '87 by J.C. Indress, Biblical Interpretation of the Book of Jubilees, if you want to go deeper into that. So you have these selective emissions that show certain ways, and you have this that Abraham, certain emissions that paint him in a certain light, including this morally dubious plan. And so those divergences are important to notice because it indicates perhaps some level of embarrassment. Philo, Jewish commentator, he recasts this narrative to place Abraham in a better light. He actually omits the request for Sarah to be called a sister, and he frames the incident mainly as just because of the Egyptians' violations of hospitality norms. So this is important to look. But when you go through and watch this whole show and watch the initial dialogue, you'll see that the emphasis is about what the gospel is and what it can do, and that's very important. Now, I appreciate Tovia's response, and I want to encourage you guys to make sure to look at my written response as well as this one, because we go deeper into some stuff that we do not have time to cover here. But do you want me to do more of these types of things? As I look over to the poll, let's see what you guys tend to say about these types of shows. And shout out to those who have given super chats. We've got a poll going where I ask you guys, do you want me to do more responses like this? Let's see, 65% say yes, 3% say no, 16% say what's that? Because I say, should we respond to more counter-missionary polemics? And 12% say maybe. Fill out that poll, please. And let's get some comments here. What do you guys think of this program that Tovia Singer did? And I'm going to encourage you to watch it, as well as his friend also did one as well. So it was essentially the same video also uploaded. So I'm going to show you these real quick so you can see how these exist, okay? I want you to see both of them together and what they're titled and what they're called. Let's show that on the screen here, okay? Because this is what we're referring to. And I would encourage you to leave a comment perhaps on this if you could. The initial video itself, okay? I'm going to show it to you here. Just give me a second. All right. And this is what we responded to here today. And this is what I would like to see some of you maybe go comment on. Be very nice. I'm going to just go ahead and go all out. When you go over there, if you talk to them, feel free to iterate that you love the Jewish people, that you're an ally. Feel free to reiterate that, and that I am too, and that's first and foremost. Feel free to iterate that. I don't care what people say. Feel free to iterate that, and that we should work together. Now, I'll debate them all day long. Don't get me wrong. We can do more. I'm okay with that. But we could work together in a certain context in dealing with the issue of Hebrew Israelism, because I think that could be very important and helpful. So here it is, exposed. The missionary who corrupted the Torah, Rabbi Singer reveals the truth. That's the first video I saw. But then his partner that he works with also did a version on his channel. And, oops, that's my show. Let me see if I can find it. And the version on his channel was called Christian Host Tries Educating a Jewish Young Man but Fails. So this is the way he phrases it. And the thumbnail here says something like he thought he was smarter than the caller. I don't even know why they get that. But that's on Tanakh Talk. He's got 59,000 subs. That's I believe the gentleman's name is William. And here's what he says. Jacob Kirby, 20 years old, did a great job on this God Logic show. The full video was interesting to watch. He kept taking Jacob in circles and asking questions while Jacob was looking up references. Jacob, being unaware of the questions, made it seem like Jacob didn't know how to respond. I didn't really even think it made it seem like he didn't know how to respond per se. I don't even know why I don't know. Like, it seems like he felt like we needed to defend. And so that's what they do. So they're talking about it. They have a discussion about it. But that's the co-host that does a lot of show together. I guess this guy used to be a pastor, the guy on the left. He used to be a pastor, I guess, and lost his faith, and now he works with Tovia. And so that's the way that one's described. I'm trying to show you the thumbnail. I don't know how to. It'll mess us up. But this one, I can't see how many. This has almost 8,000 views. He put it out a couple days after. And the comments here are interesting as well. So there's the video that we responded to, okay? and showed today and went through. There's more to say, but each time is limited. And Ham says, was he responding to you in real time? You're saying, did he watch that for the first time? It wasn't a live video. It was a premiere. It was uploaded, if that's what you're asking. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, though. Kai says, Rob Solberg just talked about Book of Jubilees. Yeah, it's important to understand about that. But, yeah, but I'm like with one of the better kings. Yeah, that's true. That's funny, Ham Sunshine. You actually get your comment and actually, in a way, feel the same way. Let's see here. I'm just looking through some of the comments. Yes, correct, Nate. You are right, my friend. Divine Nature Podcast. It would be so much easier to argue with him if he didn't strawman the doctrine of sola fide. That's a great point. That's a great point. Does Singer think God would let Abraham die if Abraham did not lie? That's a great question. That's a great question. Let's see here. Different discussion, but he says, I can't help but think of Kiss My Boot every time I see Hebrews Lights, especially with the video of the guy trolling them. By the way, the comedian reached out to me, the video you're talking about, and he was interested in coming on the show. What do you guys think about that? That could be interesting. Hey, shout out to Alejandro, great supporter of the show as well. I know that's true because No-Hide Dude said he rejects the idea of sinning once condemns you. Yeah. God bless, much love. Thank you.
You're not listening to Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist.